You're not weak, you've just been taught to fear your own power. This video shatters the illusion that softness equals safety and exposes the truth behind why you hold back. If you've ever felt stuck, silent, or underestimated, it's time to wake up and reclaim your strength. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Weakness. You've felt it before. That moment when your voice catches in your throat. When you want to speak, act, move, but something inside pulls you back. You tell yourself, I'm just not strong enough. You call it weakness. You wear it like a label, but what if that label was never yours to begin with? Weakness isn't something you are. It's something you've been taught to believe. From childhood, you're told to be quiet, to be polite, to not make waves. You're rewarded for being agreeable, for staying in line, for not asking too many questions. And slowly, you start confusing obedience with softness. You start mistaking silence for peace. You start calling fear humility. But weakness, real weakness, is a myth. It's not a lack of strength. It's a story. A story you tell yourself to stay safe. Because strength, real strength, demands something terrifying. It demands change. Most people don't avoid action because they're incapable. They avoid it because they're afraid of what action might cost. You don't stay quiet because you have nothing to say. You stay quiet because you fear being misunderstood. You don't avoid confrontation because you're peaceful. You avoid it because you fear rejection. You don't procrastinate because you're lazy. You procrastinate because you fear failure, or worse, success. This is the illusion. You're not weak, you're afraid. And fear is powerful. It's clever. It knows how to disguise itself. It shows up as hesitation, as self-doubt, as perfectionism. It whispers, not yet. You're not ready. You'll mess it up. And you listen, not because you're broken, but because you're human. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. That's what weakness really is. Avoidance. A way to dodge the mirror. A way to stay small enough to not be seen. Because being seen means being judged. Being seen means being vulnerable. Being seen means being responsible. But here's the truth, you were never meant to be small. You were never meant to be quiet. You were never meant to be safe. Look at the moments when you felt most alive. Were you hiding? Were you shrinking? Or were you stepping into something bigger than yourself? Maybe it was a time you stood up for someone. Maybe it was when you finally said what you really felt. Maybe it was when you took a risk even though your hands were shaking. That wasn't weakness. That was power. And it came from inside you. The illusion of weakness is comfortable. It lets you stay in the familiar. It lets you avoid the unknown. But comfort is a cage. And every time you choose it, you reinforce the bars. You tell yourself, this is just who I am. But deep down you know that's not true. You know there's more. You feel it. In the tension, in the restlessness, in the quiet ache that says, I'm meant for more than this. So why do we cling to weakness? Because strength is dangerous. Strength means setting boundaries. It means saying no. It means walking away. It means being misunderstood. It means being alone sometimes. It means being hated sometimes. It means being feared. And that's scary, but here's the twist. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. It doesn't need more silence. It doesn't need more softness. It needs people who are willing to be seen. People who are willing to be misunderstood. People who are willing to be strong. And if you're still watching this, something inside you is waking up. Something that's tired of hiding. Something that's ready to step forward. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of strength. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. Willing to face yourself. Willing to stop apologizing. Willing to stop shrinking. Willing to stop calling fear humility. This is your moment. Not to become someone else, but to return to who you were before the world told you to be quiet. Before you learned to flinch. Before you learned to doubt. Before you learned to hide. And if this message is hitting you where it matters, take a second to subscribe to the channel. Not because I asked, but because you know you need to hear more of this. Because you're ready to stop pretending. Because you're ready to remember who you are. This space is for people who are done playing small, who are ready to face themselves, who are ready to become dangerous and in the best way. Not reckless, not cruel, but clear, grounded, unapologetic. So let's keep going. Because once you see through the illusion, the next question is, what are you really afraid of? Chapter 2. The fear behind strength. So now you've seen it. Weakness isn't what you thought it was. It's not a flaw. It's not a permanent condition. It's a mask. And once that mask starts to slip, something else begins to show. Not just strength, but fear. Because behind every moment you've called yourself weak, there's been a deeper truth. You were afraid of what strength might demand from you. Strength isn't just about power. It's about responsibility. It's about standing up when it's easier to stay down. It's about speaking when silence would protect you. It's about choosing discomfort over comfort, truth over approval, growth over safety, and that's terrifying. Most people don't fear weakness. They fear strength. Because strength changes things. It disrupts relationships. It challenges norms. It forces you to confront parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. When you become strong, you can no longer hide behind excuses. You can no longer blame others. You can no longer pretend you don't know what you want. That's the real fear. Not of being powerless, but of being powerful and still choosing to stay small. Think about it. Why do people sabotage their own success? Why do they stay in toxic relationships? Why do they avoid opportunities that could change their lives? It's not because they're incapable. It's because they're afraid of what success would mean, afraid of who they'd have to become, afraid of losing the comfort of being overlooked, underestimated, or pitied. Strength means stepping into the unknown. It means risking failure. It means risking judgment. It means risking loneliness, because not everyone will celebrate your growth. Not everyone will applaud your boundaries. Not everyone will stay when you stop being convenient. And that's the price of power. It's not just about lifting yourself up. It's about letting go of everything that kept you down, even if it felt familiar, even if it felt safe. There's a reason people fear their own potential. It's because potential is raw. It's untamed. It's unpredictable. It doesn't come with guarantees. It comes with choices. And choices come with consequences. You might lose people. You might lose comfort. You might lose the version of yourself you've clung to for years. But what you gain is real. You gain clarity. You gain freedom. You gain self-respect. You gain the ability to walk into any room and know you belong. Not because someone told you so, but because you decided it. And that decision is where strength begins. But fear doesn't go quietly. It fights back. It whispers doubts. It brings up your past. It shows you every time you failed, every time you were hurt, every time you were rejected. It tries to convince you that strength will only lead to more pain. And sometimes it's right. Strength does hurt. Growth does sting. But weakness hurts too, just slower, just quieter, just in ways that are easier to ignore until they become impossible to escape. So the question isn't whether strength is painful. The question is whether you're willing to choose the pain that leads somewhere, instead of the pain that keeps you stuck. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." That quote has been misunderstood for centuries. It's not about cruelty. It's about clarity. It's about choosing respect over approval. It's about being willing to stand alone rather than bend to be accepted. And that's what strength demands. Not aggression, not dominance, but self-respect, boundaries, vision, the ability to say, "This is who I am," even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unpopular, even when it's lonely. Fear will tell you that strength makes you dangerous, that it makes you cold, that it makes you selfish. But the truth is, strength makes you honest. It makes you whole. It makes you free. You don't have to become someone else. You don't have to harden your heart. You just have to stop running from yourself. Stop apologizing for your intensity. Stop diluting your truth to make others comfortable. Because the moment you stop fearing your strength is the moment you start living. And maybe that's what you've been waiting for. Not permission, not validation, but a reason to stop hiding, a reason to stop shrinking, a reason to stop calling fear kindness and weakness humility. You already know what you're capable of. You've felt it. In the moments you stood up, in the moments you spoke out, in the moments you chose yourself. That wasn't weakness. That was power. And it's still there, waiting, watching, ready, so let's go deeper. Because once you stop fearing strength, the next step is learning how to use it, not to control others, but to master yourself. Chapter 3. Becoming dangerous, in a good way. You've looked weakness in the eye and seen it for what it is, a disguise. You've peeled back the layers of fear and realized that strength isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move through it. Now comes the part most people never reach, learning how to use that strength. Not to dominate, not to impress, but to become dangerous in the best possible way. Dangerous doesn't mean reckless. It doesn't mean cruel. It means clear. It means grounded. It means someone who knows who they are and refuses to be moved by anything that doesn't align with that truth. A dangerous person isn't loud, they're steady. They don't chase approval, they command respect. They don't need to prove anything. They simply are. To become dangerous, you have to stop negotiating with your boundaries. You have to stop explaining your standards. You have to stop softening your truth so others can digest it more easily. You have to stop asking for permission to be whole. It starts with clarity, knowing what you stand for, knowing what you will and won't tolerate, knowing what you want, not what you're supposed to want, not what others expect, but what actually lights you up. That clarity is magnetic. It draws the right people in and pushes the wrong ones out. And yes, that can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Next comes discipline. Strength without discipline is just noise. It's reaction. It's chaos. But when you learn to channel your energy, when you learn to pause before you speak, when you learn to act with intention instead of impulse, that's when you become powerful. Not just in moments of conflict, but in everyday life, in how you show up, in how you carry yourself, in how you make decisions. A dangerous person doesn't need to raise their voice. They don't need to threaten. Their presence alone is enough, because they've done the work, they've faced their shadows, they've stopped running. And that kind of person is rare. That kind of person is unforgettable. But becoming that person means letting go of the version of you that was built for survival, the version that kept the peace at all costs, the version that said yes when it meant no, the version that smiled through discomfort. That version served a purpose. It kept you safe. But now it's time to evolve. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to stop betraying yourself. Every time you say something you don't mean, every time you stay somewhere you don't belong, every time you pretend to be okay when you're not, you chip away at your own power. And you deserve better than that. Being dangerous means being honest. It means telling the truth even when your voice shakes. It means walking away even when it hurts. It means choosing yourself even when it's inconvenient. It means trusting that your strength won't make you unlovable. It'll make you undeniable. And yes, people will react. Some will pull away. Some will push back. Some will try to guilt you, shame you, soften you. But that's not your problem. Your job isn't to be palatable. Your job is to be real, to be whole, to be free. Freedom doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being aligned, from waking up every day and knowing you're not pretending, from looking in the mirror and seeing someone you respect. That's the kind of strength that lasts. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade when things get hard. So how do you start? You start by saying no, not because you're angry, but because you're clear. You start by speaking up, not to argue, but to be heard. You start by walking away, not to punish, but to protect your peace. You start by choosing yourself. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. You start by remembering that you don't owe anyone a watered-down version of yourself. You don't owe anyone comfort at the expense of your truth. You don't owe anyone silence when your soul is screaming. You owe yourself everything you've been waiting for. The respect, the clarity, the peace, the power, and it's already inside you. It's not something you have to earn. It's something you have to claim. Becoming dangerous isn't about changing who you are. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you to be quiet, before you learned to flinch, before you learned to hide. It's about remembering that your strength was never the problem. It was the solution, so step into it. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. Not with aggression, but with presence. Not to prove anything, but to live fully. Because once you stop fearing your strength and once you learn to use it, there's only one thing left to do. Become it.